Hello everyone and welcome back to Barb's Basement. As my never-ending struggle to escape this infernal basement persists, I continue my deep dive into Star Wars. The smell of the pages are my only escape from this never-ending feeling of cosmic death, vanishing into a distant memory, forgotten by everyone I've ever known or loved, falling to dust and dissolved by the passage of time. So, this week we are reading Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, set in the year of our Lord 3964 BBY. This series serves as a prequel to the first KOTOR game, which takes place 8 years after this series begins. In a time before Revan and Malak ultimately fall to the dark side, when the Sith were seen as a distant memory, an extinguished threat of the days of old. It is a time of conflict in the galaxy, as it always is. The galaxy is still healing from Exar Kun's Great Sith War, an event that really changed the way the galaxy viewed the Jedi. After the Great Sith War and the Mandalorian Wars, most regular folk in the galaxy didn't see much of a difference between the Jedi and the Sith, because Exar Kun and Ulic Qel-Droma were, at one point, mighty Jedi Knights. They fell to the dark side and just led a different military than the rest of the Jedi did, so it really blurred the lines between Sith and Jedi. During the Great Sith War, the Mandalorians sided with Exar Kun to take on the Republic, working as the ground troops of the war. Now the galaxy is in a state of rebuilding, and the Mandalorians are looking to avenge their loss in Kun's war and to prove their might. The war is straining the Republic's resources to a breaking point, and even worse, it's splitting the Jedi Order, with some Jedi choosing to leave the Order and to serve on the front lines against the former Sith allies. With the Republic in a weakened state, the Outer Rim becomes even more lawless without the governance of the Republic. And as a side effect of the loss of control, the Jedi are forced to rely more and more on their Jedi Knights and their Padawan learners to enforce law and order. In the Outer Rim city world of Taris, less than savory characters are gaining a foothold. Jedi defectors are enlisting the help of Masters and Padawans as they make their way to the front lines. So this week we are starting with issue number 0, a short introductory issue for the series. Our adventure begins on Taris, in better times of course. In the large crowds, the underworld elements of the planet are able to conduct their business openly. Marn Aragriff, a sniven entrepreneur, is finalizing a deal with a cloaked steampunk-looking fella. The planet has devolved to the point where Marn is confident enough to trade blaster power packs out in the open. The cloaked figure tells Marn that these power packs were heading to Captain Karath, and they fell off the loading ramp, if you catch my drift. The cloaked figure asks the Sniven if he is a patron and he's looking to help the Republic. Marn is strictly apolitical. He notes that the war between the Republic and the Mandos has bogged down trade so much that it wouldn't even matter if he snags these power packs. Besides, even if the Mandalorians fight their way onto the planet, they won't have to deal with the swoop gangs from the underworld. The way he sees it, his sales of these illegal munitions will just contribute to the planet's defenses. Before Marn can walk off with his illegal purchase, he is quickly grabbed by none other than Jedi Padawan Zane Carrick. One of the most endearing aspects of this entire series is the relationship between Zane and Marn, aka Griff. Clearly at the start of the issue, they already have a relationship, with Griff calling him Jedi Jr. One of my favorite parts about Zane is that he's just kinda shitty at being a Jedi. He isn't some mighty Jedi warrior, he is just pretty much an average dude. Griff expresses his disappointment that his day has been wasted. As a noble entrepreneur, he is under a lot of pressure, especially during a time of war. Zane tells Griff that he can tell it to the constable, and that his stockholders can reach him in prison. Zane, ever the comedy of errors, totally misplaces his handcuffs. As he turns around to find them, Griff hits the repulsor lift switch on his chair. Zane's robes are caught on his chair and he goes zooming across the walkway and is flung into the city's underworld. Griff gives Zane a cheeky wave, telling him not to land on his underworld friends. With some quick thinking, he's able to cut himself free with his lightsaber, but where's he realistically gonna go? He's falling. Before he is able to plummet to certain death, he is saved by Alec Luckily for Zane, his master sent Alec to tail him and just told him to look for the trail of debris. Zane, while thankful for the save, is confused by why he's on Taris. The only Jedi on the planet are those of the Jedi Academy. Alec made his way to Taris on his way to the front lines of the Mandalorian Wars. And luckily for all of us readers and everybody else in the galaxy, his troops and fellow Jedi lovingly call him Squint, because his last name is absolutely insane. Alec isn't just there to save Zane, he's also there to recruit fellow Jedi to join the Rogue Jedi's war efforts. Zane thinks that it will be a waste of time to try and recruit the Masters of the Temple of Taris. Master Lucian, Zane's master, thinks that the war is none of the Jedi's business. It's not just Zane's master. Half of the Jedi Council believe the war is the Republic's business. Which is pretty ironic since the Republic basically funds and protects the Jedi. The Masters of the Temple believe that it's the Jedi's sole responsibility to guard against any potential Sith uprisings. He says that in order to get the Jedi's attention, he would have to paint his head and babble on about the dark side. Oh boy. Alec personally believes that the Sith are a threat of the past. The Great Sith War ended 30 years ago. The great threat to the Jedi and the Republic now is the Mandalorians, and I'm sure he's right. The Sith will probably never come back to haunt the Jedi again. Here we see just how much self-doubt Zane has in his ability as a Jedi. It isn't news to him that he has trouble with catching even the lowest of criminals on the totem pole. His class has a test off-world a week from now, and it may be his last hope to become a Jedi Knight. Alec asks Zane why he doesn't like his odds. Zane says that his luck ranges from barely being tolerable to cataclysmic. His master brutally says that he's proof that the Force has a sense of humor. As the pair pull up to the landing pad, they see the Masters of the Temple. They are wrapping up their conversation with none other than Revan himself, his face obscured by his hood. Because at this point, KOTOR still kind of left it ambiguous as to whether or not Revan was a man or a woman, and they didn't really want to solidify exactly what Revan looked like. They still wanted to leave it up to the player's imagination. That is until later on when he was given an actual appearance in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Before Alec joins his master, he turns to give the Jedi a little bit of wisdom. He isn't sure why, but he senses that Zane may be a bigger player in the grand scheme of things. Perhaps it is the Force, but he just has a hunch, and Zane should be ready for whatever journey his life takes him on. That is what Alec and his master are doing. They are going to the war front and potentially even beyond to save the galaxy. Sometimes you have to enter the darkness to save those that live in the light. Zane tells the young Jedi Knight that doesn't sound very Jedi of him. Alec argues that it's not always a very Jedi galaxy. And with that, Alec is off to war, probably never to be seen again. As the Jedi warrior's ship takes off, Jedi Master Cornelia nearly collapses to the ground. Master Lucian was able to catch her and brings her back to her senses. She tells the Master that lines have crossed. Something in the Force has changed. Something very dark is getting closer and closer. These visions in the Force are a regular occurrence for mere Luke and the Jedi. They are naturally gifted from birth. While they don't have actual eyesight, they have foresight in the Force. Lucian says that their plans must change, and that once they know for sure what's happening, that things will be different this time. This time they will do something about it, clearly referring to another Sith uprising. As the sun sets on Taris, we close out on our issue. So already in issue number 0, there's a lot of intrigue. We are introduced to our protagonist, Zane Carrick. He is one of my absolute favorite characters in Star Wars. He is just a lovable screw-up. His playful relationship with what is supposed to be his prime target on Taris, Marn, just shows you how compassionate he is really deep down. While he isn't the most naturally talented Jedi to ever join the Order, he always tries to do the right thing. Next, we are introduced to one of the most important figures in the Mandalorian Wars, Alec, second notoriety only to Revan himself, the figurehead of the Jedi war effort against the Mandalorians. While his time with Zane is brief, it will have a lasting impact on the rest of his life. The Jedi Masters have a dark vision, potentially about the Sith rising from death to enact terrible crimes in the galaxy. Cornelia, the eyes of the Jedi Covenant on Taris, is about to make a decision that will forever change the fates of Zane and his master, Lucian Dre. Lucian is basically of noble blood for both the Jedi and the Republic. His father was a prominent Jedi Knight during the Great Sith War, and was actually born the day that Ula Kaldroma first touched the dark side, foreshadowing his dark future. The Jedi Covenant on Taris has a way darker history than they let on. They are composed of those with precognitive abilities in the Force. Cornelia, who we already met, then we have Zamar, a Keel Jedi Master. The Jedi Shadows a generation earlier investigated Sith business, trying to track them down and to stop them before they could grow into larger threats. Zamar, being a talented seer, would use his abilities to try and stop the Sith threats before they even began. While always devoted to the Jedi Covenant, even before the Jedi Order itself, he was often skeptical of acting impulsively on their visions. Renee Tay is the youngest of the Masters of Taris, probably one of the most interesting Jedi of the group. As a youngling, she would often have night terrors and terrible migraines, causing her to lose her own grasp on reality. Luckily for her, Lucian's mysterious mother was able to spot clear signs of Force visions, and was able to devise a therapy plan to help her get them under control. From then on, she devoted all of her training and loyalty to Lucian's mother, and therefore the Jedi Covenant. But we'll learn more about Lucian's mother later on. Next up is the Fioran Jedi Thelm, a broad-shouldered and intimidating Jedi to say the least. As his species ages, they become physically stronger. stronger. Wisely, Feln hides his age to potential threats, that way they have to second guess how strong he actually is. Unlike most of the Jedi of the time, he was already a well-traveled adult when he finally made the trek to Coruscant to study with the Jedi Order. While the rest of the Covenant can be deadly serious and even pompous at times, Feln actually has a sense of humor, and out of all the masters that Lucien is close with, Feln is probably his only true friend. Well, I hope you guys are just as excited as I am to start off this new series. I'm going to present this issue by issue in the same way that I present Legacy. This series obviously ties into the KOTOR game, so a lot of you probably already know the fates of Revan and the Jedi Knight Alec, but for the rest of the characters in this series, we're going to avoid speaking about their future. This series will be uploaded every Thursday, so make sure you come back every week for that. Until then, we'll see you next time.